Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
This is RecTech, the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. Our mission is to teach you about the new tools and tactics for finding talent online. Today's show is another part of our event coverage from HIREconf. But first, the RecTech podcast is sponsored by our friends at WorkHere and our newest ones at Emissary. First, WorkHere. They have a hyperlocal candidate delivery system that targets candidates with GPS precision through their geofencing ad platform. You can reach more people who live closer to your office on the screens they use the most, their mobile phones. Get your hire message delivered into the social mobile apps they use most often. Then a human chat team responds quickly, answers their questions, vets them for you, and then helps them sell them on your brand and opportunity. Then deliver them right to your ATS, SMS, or even email account. Go to WorkHere.com and tell them you heard it on RecTech. And now let me introduce you to our newest sponsor on RecTech, Emissary.ai, the text recruiting platform. Glad to have these guys on board. If you're looking to add texting to your recruiting efforts, and let's face it, why aren't you at this point? Emissary has several ways to let you communicate and target candidates by text. One-to-one texting, text campaigns, share by text, great for job postings, custom short codes, great for events and offline campaigns, text retargeting, and of course, chat by text. I know the team at Emissary personally, and I've seen what they do up close. It's really good stuff, and I encourage you to check them out. Find them on the web at Emissary.ai. Welcome them to the show, and of course, tell them you heard about it on RecTech. All right, on to the show. So this is the second piece of audio recorded at HIREconf NYC. In this audio, you're going to hear Audra Knight introduce and moderate a panel of recruitment marketing folks, such as Katrina Kibben from 3 Years Media, Debbie Salato from Citizens Bank, and someone else from HubSpot. I forget her name, but Audra will mention it, as they chat about job descriptions and more at the conference. Enjoy the audio.
So my name is Audra Knight, and I do recruitment operations for a cybersecurity company called Tenable. And in that, our team owns employer brand management, and which includes job descriptions. And we've made quite a few changes this year that we're excited about, but we still have a ways to go. A lot of new things we want to do as well. And I think the mouse is kind of stuck.
If there's not a technical issue, it's not a speaking presentation.
See the little mouse thing? But I was going to say I have, on top of my job, I have quite a few side gigs. I like to stay really busy. I do a lot of kind of crazy things, and I'm always having fun with the family. There we go. There we go. And I also have two boys that are potentially the most naughty humans on the planet. And when we have babysitters, we actually have to pay them double for hazardous duty pay. It's tricky. And my friend Jo over here, she can attest to that because she actually volunteered to watch them overnight for 2 nights, and she survived. So she needs a clap, everyone, to Jo. Now, when Jeremy and I were talking about a topic, and we landed on this one, I was super excited. And the first person I thought that had to be on the panel was my friend Katrina Kibben. For 2 reasons, really. The company she has that she's going to tell us about, 3 Years Media, they help people with their job descriptions. And also, I would argue that she's the best writer in our entire field.
Ooh,
so, yep, he would disagree, but he would be wrong. And I don't think he's even here. But anyway, so that's why I thought she had to come. And another fun fact, the last HIREconf, I was supposed to speak on video recruitment, and I broke my leg playing ice hockey pretty much just before it, and my doctor actually completely refused for me to fly, and I was very unhappy with that. But Katrina stepped in for me. She did an amazing presentation, gave me a shout out, so thank you for that. And I'm glad we're here today, and I'm standing on 2 feet, so that's good.
Me too.
So can you tell us a little bit about 3 Years Media and what you're up to there?
Yeah, so like Audra said, my name is Katrina Kibben. I'm the founder of 3 Years Media. I built that firm because I know that recruiters really struggle to build their pipeline, and I don't think that you should have to spend a ton of money to do that. And so I help them look at free or low cost opportunities to be able to do that by improving their copy and their strategy.
Fantastic. Now, Debbie and I met, I missed her silly slide. I gotta work on that.
I also have 2 dogs, which is why Tinkle on the couch is #1 on my dyslexia.
I appreciate parties without one. Who wants to go?
Exactly.
Now, Debbie and I met, we did a panel together in Boston about at least 2 years ago, maybe 3. And I was really impressed with the stuff she was coming out with at the time. It was about employer branding. And I was like, this is someone I really have to follow. And since I have been following her and seeing she's built this really cool team that she's going to talk about, but also I was amazed with the fact that she was able to have a family and a full-time job and a team, able to go back and get her master's on top of that, and a master's in marketing, which for our field is, I think, so useful and so amazing. So I'm jealous of that and impressed. But Debbie, tell us about your team that you're doing at Citizens.
Sure. So I'm the head of employer brand marketing at Citizens Bank. I've been there for 4 years, and we have a small but mighty team of 4 of us. We own everything from our career site to our job descriptions, social media, content marketing, media analytics, a lot of stuff. So in the 4 years I've been there, we've made a ton of progress in building the function, and I'm really excited to share that with you today.
Thank you. Now, Hannah and I met, again, about 3 years ago. We had a bunch of mutual friends, and we live in a similar area. And what I always think is cool about HubSpot's content, when I've been watching it, is even back in 2015, I saw that they were doing Facebook live streams with recruiters, talking about events and what's happening. And I said, I can't believe they're doing this already, when still I'm seeing teams say, this is a cool idea, but we're not quite ready for it. So they're always pushing the envelope. And I also want to give a shout out to their certifications. They have a lot of free ones that have really helped me kind of learn more of the recruitment side, inbound marketing, email marketing. So check those out, the HubSpot free certifications. But Hannah, tell us about your team, your global team, and what you're up to there.
Cool. Thanks, Audra. So I'm Hannah. I run the employer brand team at HubSpot. And we manage everything that you consider top of the funnel or awareness marketing for all things recruiting and hiring. So I have 3 soon-to-be 4 direct reports who work on everything from content, our social media channels just for recruiting, video, job descriptions, our careers blog, as well as PR. So I have a PR background. I used to do PR at HubSpot pre-IPO. So now we have a culture PR manager who spends a lot of time pitching and building media relationships all about workplace trends and working at HubSpot. So our team is global. We have part of our team in Dublin to support our growing offices in Europe and in APAC. So yeah, next year we're really focused on sort of all things external diversity initiatives and really trying to become a better employer there. And I'm super excited about this panel. When I started this team at HubSpot 3 years ago, one of the first things I worked on was job descriptions. I asked our recruiting team, like, where do you think a good place to start is? And they were like, job descriptions are so bad, can you please fix them? And I was like, I can try. So we started rolling out workshops 3 years ago, and we still do them today, or I run those globally. So I'm really excited to talk about this and learn from you guys.
Perfect. Now, firstly, I wanted to talk about why do they even matter? I mean, we've always had rubbish ones. They've always been boring. They're known to be dusty and gross. People get jobs. I mean, they're kind of working. People are getting jobs. So why are they so important that we even need to have this conversation? So, Katrina, can you jump in with this one?
Absolutely. I look at job ads as one of the few variables in hiring that we can actually control, right? So we can't control what's happening in the candidate's mind. We can't control how their wife might feel about moving to New York City. There are thousands of variables if you were to look at recruiting as an equation. And one of the few variables we can actually control that has a lot of power over conversion, which you were just touching on, are job ads. So if you make your job ad good, right, that's where you can start having a much better, everything is better, I think, if you really optimize that first point of conversion.
Yep. And Hannah, talk about how you said with how they're marketing docs and how you can use the HubSpot and the marketing work to make them more.
Yeah, I mean, related to Katrina, you're absolutely right about them being a variable that we can control. And the way I've always thought about it is, I'm always shocked at how bad and poorly job descriptions are written. And not just because you have to be a writer to write well. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think you have to care enough to make someone really want to do that job. And often they're really more of like a formality or a means to an end, or like something you just have to do in the recruiting process. And to me, candidates can feel that. Like, that's a crappy experience, especially when teams like ours go through so much effort to make that experience learning about your company in the research phase really interesting and put all that effort in at the top of the funnel to then get to a job description description that's just boring and paints a different picture, to me ruins that experience a little bit. So we like to think of them as marketing opportunities, not that formality that they're typically thought of as.
I like it. I think we should call them that, marketing opportunities. That's much nicer sounding. And Debbie, didn't you have some issues with them being kind of like legal docs, and you had to kind of convert them over, or you've seen that?
Yeah, we did. And one thing I would add into why they're important, when we look at our Google Analytics, the majority of traffic to our site lands on a job description, right? So you think about the experience of the candidate, they're coming to your site because they want this really great information, so make it meaningful. So I would just add that to the first question. So at Citizens, and I think at a lot of organizations, you have sort of your legal job description that's really long, it has all this legal language, it's very specific, what do you have to do, what requirements are there, very boring. Then you have a marketing job description, which is really what you go to the market with. It's very candidate-centric, that explains the value prop to them, why should they consider this opportunity, why should they consider Citizens in our case. So for a long time, they were two separate documents. And we're actually going through this process of creating a template that makes them sort of somewhere in the middle, that each job has a very similar format, meets the legal requirements, but is much closer to a go-to-market. So hiring managers aren't having to write this, or recruiters aren't having to write this, because they're not necessarily the people we want. Creating a marketing job description. So we have a formatted template now that is somewhere in the middle, so that it's scalable and a better representation of our organization out in the marketplace for candidates.
I'm so glad you said that. I just want to add, the thing that really gets me about job ads is that you know when they're bad, right? Like when you read a really bad job ad, even a kind of bad job ad, you know they're terrible and they still go out. That job description, job ad. Okay, let me clarify that too. I'm going to mix back and forth between ad, post, and job description by nature. Please don't tweet at me.
How dare you? Wow.
Well, you made an amazing point, Debbie, I saw one statistic that 94% of people go directly to your job descriptions, not ever seeing your beautiful career site you spend $8 million on. So why not spend some time and resources getting the content onto those pages?
I think that's, just to jump in, but that's the other kind of massive piece I think that people miss, and going back to the marketing opportunity idea. We spend tons of energy trying to create awareness and become a best place to work on Glassdoor and do this kind of really top of the funnel work, which is great and good. Our goal at HubSpot, or part of what my team is measured on, is how many people apply through our job site to work at HubSpot in a given year. So all of our inbound applicants, doesn't include referrals, doesn't include sourcing, just inbound applicants. Our goal for the year is 100,000. We're at about 85 now. That's 85,000 unique people who have looked at some piece of content, and if it's only that job description, that's bad word of mouth if it's boring, that's a bad experience if it's boring. Like, that's someone that maybe could have been a promoter one way or another that you're just creating a not great experience for. And a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely, good point. Just look at the numbers. So let's talk about, we talked about already why they stink. We covered all of this. Copy and paste isn't a problem I see all the time when they just say, oh, here's the old one, and it's actually 5 years old and stinks. But let's talk about what we could actually do to improve them now. For bias and inclusivity, I think Debbie, was you that has tried Textio? I've heard good things about that.
Yep, and I think Hannah has as well. So we, it was quite expensive. So we did pilot it and we did learn from it. And actually we're in a fairly good place. But what we did was actually did some external research and understanding words that have bias. And we did a small pilot on one job description in a team that has historically been predominantly male, and we wanted to work to increase to balance female talent in this specific group. And so we reworked that job description to skew more towards women, and we actually saw an increased applicant flow of women and qualitative commentary that they really liked the job description. So, I think for us it was a win, and we did it at no cost, and it was just one small pilot that really showed us it does make a difference. And I know you've used Textio, so maybe you want to share.
Yeah, we've piloted it too. We're not a customer, but we piloted and learned a ton from the research and a ton from their data. And how we think about inclusivity in job descriptions is kind of in two parts. The first would be the actual content and the information you put in a job description, and then the language, how you write it. And on the information piece and the first content piece, I think the biggest wow moment for us was that we all know this stat, or I hope we do, if not we should, that men apply for a job when they meet 60% of the qualifications, but women will only apply if they meet 100%. So when I would go and analyze and kind of audit some of HubSpot's job descriptions a couple years ago, and I would see things like, you have to be like the best marketing expert out there. It's like, do you, or do you just have to have potential to become that person? And I think most people would agree it's probably the latter. So we really took a hard look at what our requirements were and kind of like called bullshit on them and just said, this is not a requirement. Like, you don't have to be able to do this thing, you have to be willing to learn it. So that's kind of one part of inclusivity. And then the other piece we spend a lot of time on, a lot of workshops I run are related to more inclusive language, Debbie was talking about. So which language, which words, which phrases actually turn people off. Textio has some really interesting new information about that jargon and kind of corporate cliches. So things like, you have to scale your impact, or you have to like hustle, or all these sorts of words that we find pretty normal. They deter people from applying generally, but they have data that shows they turn people of color off from applying at 3 times the rate. So that's just jargon, and that's just corporate cliches that we think of pretty like second nature. It's pretty important to put yourself outside your own shoes and get peer review, ask other people in your organization to look at it, because that's pretty startling when you start to think about it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of them too, because I feel like they do a really great job of taking their tool and building it into platforms that recruiters actually use to talk to candidates as well. So they have like a Gmail plugin that you can use to see how your emails are doing. And the other thing I would say, their blog is excellent. I highly, highly recommend that you follow their blog and their CEO, because she drops those awesome nuggets of information that could really help you. And you don't have to be a customer at all, right? You can get some really great information just by subscribing to that blog.
Yeah, absolutely. Something exciting I was going to say. What we did with ours is what you mentioned, how women, need only apply if they are 100%. So we separated out with here's, what you need, and then we said and ideally. And we were really strict about talking to hiring managers. Like, okay, you said you need a degree. Is that actually you need, or can I put that under the ideally? So we've been working with that. I think that's been good too. But I've heard great things about their blog. Is there any other tools that I'm missing that you don't have the budget, but you want to look at those? Our peer review is great, especially in different areas, like your Dublin team.
Totally. We do a lot of, I encourage a ton of peer review. Similar to Debbie, we put together a template that includes a boilerplate about the company that can't go out of date. So I took all the numbers out of there, no customer count, no things like that that could potentially be outdated. We added a inclusivity statement that's short and sweet, that just says, confidence can hold people back from applying, no matter who you are or where you came from. You can be successful here. So if you see a job that might be exciting, we really recommend that you apply. We'd love to hear from you. So now that's in every job description, and it's really just kind of standardizing things to make it easy. One thing we did about a month ago is our recruiting operations team worked with our product team, and we built an internal plugin just for our recruiters to use that kind of is like a spell check for inclusive language. So we worked with all of our employee resource groups and our program manager for diversity and inclusion, and we sat down and made a list of like all the words that we see commonly in our job descriptions, and then we kind of just hard coded how to screen for those in the future. So we have our own internal tool for that too, and we're kind of seeing how that's working.
That is so impressive. I love it. So one thing I like to always think about, and it's always interesting for me, because I'm just going to do this big. Go back. Is how much of the job description should be about the job itself versus the company? Because I used to be that they were like all about just the job. This is what you need. And now we're saying, because of employer branding, people actually care about the company. They want to know what's up, what you're doing, whether they're interested, whether they'll fit with the people or they look like them. So what do you think, is there a healthy balance versus the company versus the job, or does it really depend?
So it depends on your company. Inevitably, you probably have an infrastructure that's going to weight this one way or another. But as a branding person, I think fundamentally, it should probably be about 70% about them, right? Like in this story, let's think of the job description as a story, because that's how the candidate thinks of it. They look at it as their future. That matters to them, right? And I don't think that the average candidate is going to be compelled to make you, the company, a hero. They are going to be compelled to make themselves the hero, and they want to see if they can be a hero at your company. So you want that job description, ad posting, whatever. You want all of those pieces to make them feel something, and I'm totally blowing part of my presentation later, but it really has, I think ultimately it doesn't matter what the weight is if they walk away from that being like, that's me and I can be great.
Very cool. Any of you guys have any ideas about how you decide if there's more content about the company versus the job?
I think it depends on the job. I think there are certain roles where, like, the interesting work that they're doing, the impact that they would have in the work takes precedence over how great our company is.
Your personas.
Yeah, and so think about in the digital tech space, we're a bank. That's not super interesting, right? But we're doing really cool stuff. So if we could talk about the really cool stuff that they would be the hero doing, that's more interesting than, hey, we're a bank and this is how many loans we have. So I think it depends on the candidate and how you write that.
Yep. Now, speaking of writing it, who should write it? Should it be the recruiters? Should it be marketing people that are trained in that? Yes. Yeah.
I genuinely don't believe that, actually. Yeah. I think right now is the time where you stop hiring external copy firms to do, and I'm putting myself out of business on this, right?
Yeah.
I think you actually should stop hiring external teams and spend a lot more time teaching your team to be excellent copywriters. That's where you should be investing your time. Like you guys said, both of you are talking about really building that infrastructure to create excellence, building in the peer review to make sure those job ads are good. I think those are the steps that you take instead of being like, no, this is my magical person who writes all my job ads. I think it's about setting up infrastructure so everyone can be successful.
And Hannah, can you tell us a little bit more about those trainings you do? Because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, sure. So every quarter or so we run a global job descriptions workshop training, which started out just for the recruiting team, mainly to just start scaling some of the requests that we were getting for people to write them or have my team help write them. We're a big company, we're not the biggest company out there, but we probably have about 200 job recs open at any given time. So we were getting pinged left and right with, hey, can you fix this one? I don't like this, can you change it, whatever. So we came up with a template and then took it to a workshop to at least empower recruiters first to be able to push back on hiring managers when they got a job description that they knew wasn't great and could be better, to kind of just help empower them to work on those problems so that they need our team to do it. Because we slow them down too, right? Like recruiting moves quickly. If you're waiting on me for a month to help you write something, it's probably not worth it. So we run workshops, they're about 45 minutes long, where we walk through the template of a job description, what needs to be included, how to write an interesting mission statement. So I pull out examples of bad mission statements from HubSpot. Like we have one for a sales position, it's not there anymore, but it just makes me laugh every time. And it's just like, in this role, you might be able to do this, and if you did, there might be impact there, and who knows who you might, like, it was just bad. I was like, no one would ever be excited to do this, and you know it. So I think it's more empowering people that when you see that, to say something about it and fix it, because it's not that hard to fix. So we walk through that, and then we spend the other half talking about inclusivity and just how people can help each other better with language. And then we do an exercise at the end where everybody has to write a job description for Dora the Explorer based on everything we just talked about. So it gets people in the habit of just thinking through the template.
Yeah, one thing we do, kind of similar to making it about them and their stories, we try and keep all of ours as targeted as possible. So we use Clinch, recruitment marketing platform, so that we can have different templates for Dublin R&D jobs, UK sales jobs, marketing in the Bay Area. They're all totally different templates. But then when we post the job, the actual job description pops in, but it'll have the pictures of that team or a video of what they're doing. So I like that, because I think if they're going to go there, they can actually see that team. It's not just super generic stuff, because we're a big global company. So that's been definitely useful for us. But let's go back to talk about visuals. So I know we do video job descriptions. Hannah, I think you do video job descriptions too. How's that going?
We do. We're testing them out. So if anyone here, like, you probably experienced this too, and you have great visual media in your job descriptions, but doing like highly produced, well-produced video for anything on the people operations side of the house is really hard. It's hard to get the resources, no one wants to pay for it, no one can see the direct impact of it. And personally, I know video is the future. Videos never perform as well as anything else. The engagement's really low, people don't watch them till the end. Like, that's just data, they just don't do that well. That said, you'll never stop hearing from your recruiting team, we need more videos, we want more videos. So Riley, who's on my team, she's our social media and content creator. She runs our HubSpot Live channels, and she started with Facebook Live video job descriptions, because then they're always there and you always have the link. So you're interviewing, VPs for 5 minutes to talk about what the role is, why we need it, what the impact is, and who we're looking for. So we did a handful of those for pretty evergreen roles, and then we started doing some that were a little bit more highly produced. Like they weren't live; we were just shooting them on a phone still and putting like a HubSpot, bumper at the beginning of it. And people really like them. I don't think they're performing any better than anything else, to be completely honest. But I do think it all goes back to candidate experience. So like we don't care about the data as much if we think it gives a little bit more of that human element that HubSpot claims to have. So we do those. We put them in the job descriptions, but more importantly, we put them on social, we put them on our job site so that you don't actually have to click into the job description to see them.
Right, because a lot of people might just get there for their first time and they're not going to watch a video because they're just barely considering you top of the funnel. But if then they go over your Facebook page or their LinkedIn and then they're interested, then that's not going to actually watch that video. And videos are really fantastic for Facebook ads. Of course, that's what we use ours for as well.
I see videos work really well when I build them out of the personas. So, for example, I just did a pretty significant project for sales in San Francisco, and the videos actually drove about 4 times the conversion on the job description page, because when I talked to the team, the sales team, right? So I go into the team and I talk to the people who are doing the job, their best people, try to learn from them, right? And every single person said, the biggest impact for me is the people that I work with. And so they created a video series of people interviewing the people they work with to say, come into our team, this is what it's like every day. And they did a 1-minute, okay, so tell me about this, on the key factors that would make them decide if they wanted the job or not. And we only did video for them, rocked.
I love that, that's really cool. I think the videos that I do think work really well are similarly like day in the life type stuff. Like people always want day in the life, and like that's part of a job description, but it can quickly kind of go off the rails to talk about culture and sort of everything else. I think day in the life and like similar what's the team like is well worth doing a video for. It typically just gives a better inside look.
Yeah, it's all about value in the end, right? Yeah. We even do quite a few that are not even about us at all. We did one that was top tips for new people going to Grace Hopper. And it did really well. We did a few YouTube ads. And then, of course, at the end, it's like, by the way, we're hiring. But it's all about value. It doesn't have to be about you, too.
Because you made them the hero, not you.
Yes, there you go.
You made it about their story, not you. That's the difference maker, always.
Yep. No, it's no more of those GB videos that are like the CEO and clouds and flowers and high fives. Anyway, but Debbie, can you talk? You've got visual ones, right?
Sure, yes. So since we know that the majority of people that come to our site land on job descriptions, we, in our volume areas, said, how do we make these great? How do we make this a great experience? How do we bring in content? How do we tell them everything that they would want to know on one page? And so we worked with our agency, and it is a product that they created, their advanced job description. So our 5 volume roles for the bank actually have these beautiful visual job descriptions where you can clearly see the skills that you need, what is the value to you, so what part of our employer value proposition would make it an icon so you can easily see the 5 things. It brings in our job description, we bring in content, we bring in video, so you only have to go to that one page on our site, and then you can decide, is this the right fit for me, and apply right from there. We also bring in our Glassdoor ratings, so it's all a one-stop shop basically on a job description. And our data is showing us we are getting more we're actually getting fewer applicants, but that's okay because they're better quality applicants when we look at how many applies to a hire. So the data is showing us that it's working, and it's also showing that people are going to fewer pages, which indicates we're giving them what they want on one page. So I think that's been a real success for us. So we have 5 that we launched last year, and we're launching 2 more this year. So if there's a technology that you can use, I think it's a great way to invest in your candidates and give them what they want on one page.
Yeah, it's almost like a career site, your whole career site on that one page. Bring it on. And we do have a couple more things we can talk about, but I thought I'd open up for some questions in case we get a lot of them. We can jump in, and if there's not, we can move on to what other stuff we were going to say. That one?
Can you give an example of a before and after job ad or job description in a nutshell, like in the highlights of it? What did you change? What words did you change, and what did you make difference? Thank you.
Sure. Just don't ask me for the conversion data on it afterwards, because I don't have it. But one experiment that we did that was pretty focused a couple of years ago was I was doing employer brand. So my team started out by me doing employer brand just for engineering. So I was part of the engineering org. And one of the things I worked on was working with 10 of our tech leads. So tech leads are VPs in engineering, and taking all the open job descriptions they had for each of their teams and spending at least an hour or two a week in a workshop rewriting all of those. And what we did was we said, you don't have to use a template, you don't have to make it HubSpotty, write it in your own voice, but make it about your team and make it about the work, because all the pushback we were getting from engineering leadership was these job descriptions just don't capture how interesting the technical challenges are for this job. We're like, cool, well then you should write them, explain what they are. And then we would do editing and revisions. And really the biggest difference was that when you had the person who's actually doing the work, writing it, it made it that much more interesting and it made it feel that much more real. So before, you'd have a recruiter writing that who understands it enough to talk about it on the phone with someone and kind of screen someone for that. But when you have a VP of engineering or a technical lead writing what they do every day, you can really just feel the difference, which is kind of qualitative, but it worked. The other thing that was different about it would have been the inclusive language piece. So we were just really, really hypersensitive to what kind of language we were using and how we were phrasing things, as well as the requirements. The other thing we did, you never want to take someone off of a job description page, but I do think if you assume that they land there from somewhere else, they might want a little bit more information. So we did add a link or two in there we have some blog posts about how our tech stack is built and what programming languages we use. We made sure that that was available for them to link out to. So there's really just more information and more about like you, what impact will you have and what will you be doing, whereas before I think again it was more about HubSpot and what we needed.
I did one where they were having a real struggle. Engineers in Silicon Valley. Anyone had that problem before? And so we needed to do something that really stood out, right? You're literally one of a million. And so after interviewing and learning kind of their culture, blah, 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 we actually did Mad Lib job descriptions. And so it played like a video, but the job description was the visual. And when they had a blank, they would write it in and you'd see kind of the like little scripty, cheesy thing. But then the voiceover would be the hiring manager saying, this is the single most important thing. This is why people don't make it on this team. And then it would keep going. And they would fill it in. And that, I mean, it filled jobs, period. I was kind of like, whoa, that was really good. So you can go outside of the box too, right? It doesn't just have to be like, oh, we're gonna use this paragraph, we're gonna change this paragraph, right? Push yourself a little bit, be a little different. That matters now.
And one tip I'll throw in, kind of goes off what you were saying, Hannah, is knowing that a lot of them are coming from maybe Indeed or Glassdoor or LinkedIn, wherever, and they're gonna have a quick look, and then most likely, if it's not the per job, they're gonna hit the back button, and you don't want that because they're on their career site. So have a search button that's like really obvious, or a way for them to just stay on your site and look at your jobs more, versus just hitting the back button, because that's their next step. Do we have any more questions?
Hi, my name's Sarah. Something that I've been struggling with job descriptions is if we do want to go a little bit crazy or go out of the box, we get a lot of pushback from marketing, like this isn't consistent with our messaging or our voice. So like what tips or tricks do you have for recruiting to partner with marketing to be consistent but also be a little bit out there too?
Let's go with you, Debbie.
I was like, oh, that sounds like our world. For us, it is a partnership between the recruiting, the hiring manager getting the information right, and then our team does work to make sure it's on brand and our tone and our voice, and speaking to who we are and our value proposition. Perhaps if you had workshops and you trained people, you might be able to teach them, what is a tone and what is our voice and how do we speak about our organization. I would say, this is just me, get the information right, get it to a really good place. If there are things that you can pull out that are authentic to your team or to what makes your group unique or what makes this role special and unique, I think if you can take that and then partner with marketing to have them sort of make it pretty and candidate-centric and in a marketing language that resonates but also represents the organization. I would say if you can make that partnership happen, you probably get to a good spot, but respect of both sides, what each brings to the table.
I think that's a great point. One other thing I'll add is I think it's worth taking the time to explain that brand and employer brand are allowed to be different. they are going to be different, depends on the stage that your company's at. I think for us, when HubSpot was smaller, when I joined, we had about 300 people. The culture was sort of what the brand of the company was, because we were small, right? Like we weren't proactively thinking about employer brand. We were still at that stage where we were hiring people we knew and things like that. Today, we have 2,500 people in 8 offices globally. So thinking about how to just apply our consumer brand to employer brand actually started breaking in a couple places, because we were like, we don't want to talk to candidates this way. Like, it works so well for our homepage and it works so well for selling software. We're a little bit different on the culture side. So I think we've just kind of tried to work with marketing to align on what's important to get right, but then where are the differences and where is that okay, so that they kind of understand when we create content, it might have a little bit of a different feel, but it's all coming from the same mission and the same culture and the same place, so that's actually okay.
And if you're still having trouble, I think you either bring data, right? I have data that shows that candidates want us to speak to them this way, or get data. Are you willing to test this, right? They're marketers. I feel like that appeals to their senses. Can we test it? Do you have numbers, right? And often I think as recruiters, we kind of go for the feel when there's numbers. You can get some numbers.
My actual social media person just got poached by our corporate marketing team, so I'm happy for her because she's thrilled, but I'm super happy for us because now we have someone that knows recruitment marketing over on the corporate marketing side, so I'm excited about that. But also that points out the fact I'm hiring. If you guys know any marketers in Maryland, Baltimore area, send them my way. I saw a question over here. I think I did. Yeah.
Hi, can you share some more about specific words and phrases that were attractive to female candidates as well as people of color?
My first piece of advice is text to your blog.
Yeah.
Seriously, subscribe, read.
But I mean,
Yeah. No, I just meant in general, subscribe and...
Yeah, some of the words, and I can send you, I have a couple slides with a bulleted list of kind of the ones that stood out to us most. Things like proven track record was one that appeals to men more, but would turn women and people of color away at a slightly higher rate. So proven track record. Things like high impact, just the phrase high impact, people don't like that. The other one was scalability. Another one was high performing teams. Let me send you a list of them. There were a handful that were kind of in that same vein that were just very jargony. What are some other jargons that we used? Oh, like outside the box, or people actually didn't like outside the box. That was one on the list. Yeah. So small ones like that, but I can definitely send you a list of all of them so that I don't make things up.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps both HR tech firms and employers to get more clients or candidates through our consulting practice and online tools. So be sure to check out our sites like recruiting headlines, job fairing, and more to stay up to date on what's happening in recruiting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.